This is Kelly Matthews, and this is another edition of my Doctor of Ministry series. And today I have Hannah with me, Hannah McGinnis. She's over on the West Coast, which means that we were in the same cohort in Houston together, and before that in Chicago. But you had a lot of traveling to do to go to your program. Welcome. Thanks for doing this.
Yes. Thanks for having me. I'm excited.
Good. Yeah. Okay, so I mentioned Chicago and Houston and all that. I assume by now that most folks know that my journey took a little bit of a circuitous route, and yours was pretty similar. So tell us why a DMin. What's your journey to that program?
Yeah. I knew that I was not done learning, which life learners, we should all learn our whole lives. But I thought in a formal academic setting. And so I was considering a couple different programs, and I flew actually to Chicago. I had gone to Wheaton for undergrad and my master's. And so I actually flew to Chicago in the spring one time, or maybe in the fall at some time, but to talk with some professors and who knew me well and to say, hey, what do you think? Like, can I do a PhD? What would be a good thing? Would you write a rec for me? And it was a really great weekend. And I had a lot of people like speak into me. But I went and saw one professor who I was looking at an EDD degree, and he was like, you don't want to do that. And I said, why not? And he was like, you don't want to do administration. And I was like, okay, tell me more, because apparently you know better than me. And he said, well, have you thought about Lynn's program, Lynn Cohick? And I was like, well, no, I don't really know too much, but I'm actually going to her house later today. And so I went to her house and
okay, let me stop.
Yes.
Tell us a little bit of the history you have with Dr. Cohick, just to set this up.
Yes. So she was one of the people I wanted to go see. She had been out in Denver, and then she came back to Chicago. And I was like, she's back. I just want to say hi, because I had her in undergrad for a couple different classes. This probably will come up when we talk about my dissertation topic, but I was diagnosed with lymphoma my senior year of college. And I actually had Lynn Cohick as my professor the semester I was diagnosed. So we go back, and she let me take an exam from home over Christmas break. So like we had bonded, and I got to know her pretty well then. And then when I went back to Wheaton for my master's program about 5 years after that, and passed her in the hallway, just in passing. I said, hey, I see you're leading Wheaton in the Holy Lands. That's so cool. I wish I could have gone when I was an undergrad. And she said, grad students can go. Look at the asterisks. And then it was like, that was ships in the night passing. So I like went and looked, and it was like certain programs can apply. And mine actually happened to be one of like 3 that qualified. So I ended up doing Wheaton in the Holy Lands, a 6-week study program in Israel.
6 weeks? Whoa.
Yeah. So Israel, Turkey, Greece, and we ended in Rome with Dr. Cohick and then George Kalantzis. And George is the one who said, you don't want to do an EDD.
Oh, that's funny.
Have you heard about Lynn's program? And I was like, great, I'm going to go to her house later, because I just wanted to catch up. Okay. So we had known each other, I guess at this point, it was probably 2022-ish, 2021. Mm-hmm. And so I'd known her since 2008, maybe 2007. I had her for a couple classes in undergrad. So I went to her house and just was like, you're back. Tell me more about, how you're back in Chicago. And so she was telling me about Northern, and she said, I'm starting a program in the fall. And I said, I've heard. And we just really were catching up about everything. But as we were talking, she was explaining what the goal was. And I was like, okay, interesting. Not really what I was planning. Great. And on the way out the door, she said, okay, see you in the fall. And I was like, haha. And I laughed. I truly was like, how funny. And then I got home from that trip, that kind of like scouting trip, if you will. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I was thinking about it for like weeks. I was like, wait, hold on. That might be what I want to do. Maybe not EDD. I don't know, PhD in what. Like I was a literature major, and then I taught high school literature. So I loved that. And I think that's a great way to use ministry. But I had started doing cancer ministry, and it was like, I just kind of want to do a lot of things. And I don't know, I'm not going to do a PhD. And so I was trying to figure that out. And so as I thought more and more about it, I thought, wait, I think her program sounds really great. And so I emailed her and I said, well, remember how in passing you were like, see you in the fall. Tell me more. So that kind of started that conversation. Yeah.
So I have to ask, was she smug?
No,
okay.
Not at all. But it just felt like a funny, and we just have moments like that. We're literally like in the hallway passing her. I actually passed her on the streets of London once when she had just written a recommendation, to get into my master's program. And it was like, what? So I feel like we just like in passing, there's these moments that end up being very influential in my relationship with her. So
that's so great. Okay. So you had a plan, or at least you had a goal of doctoral work in some fashion, and you were exploring it. And this is how you ended up at Northern. Okay. So we don't have to get into all the drama of how Northern turned into Houston for us.
But can I say a thing though? Because I actually didn't really know all of the drama happening. I felt like I just got here. Like, I don't really know. But I took a class in June and I was thinking, okay, I'll continue on here. And it was with you and not our whole cohort. It was actually with a whole other cohort. And I knew like 2 people in it. And you walked by the back of my chair and you were like, so are you going to apply to transfer? And I was like, well, they're going to let us continue here. And you were like, Hannah, you should apply. The deadline's this week. And I was like, okay, fine. And so I probably genuinely, like, a conversation with you and another person, I probably wouldn't have transferred. So thank you.
Oh, well, we're really glad you did. Yes. I do remember all of that. Yeah. You're just, God puts situations and crosses your path with people. And I do remember that because the transfer option was open for us, which is unusual at that point. And so, I wanted you to make sure that you knew all the facts so that you didn't miss an opportunity if it was, the right thing to do. So you ended up at Houston, as did I and one other classmate, whom you will already have met, Susie Flory, in this series. So now we're at Houston and we're continuing on with the program. Go back to your cancer story. You don't have to go into all the details, but obviously you went through that situation. It took a few years and it really marked you spiritually as well as physically and emotionally, all of the ways. Tell us how the program intersected with that part of your journey.
Yeah. Cancer has been such an interesting thing in my life. I don't think about it every day anymore, but that took a while to get there. Like, I still thought about it every day for a long time. I feel like it's constantly been this thing that I'm like, and we're done with that. And then the Lord says, nope, we're not. So, so I was diagnosed my senior year of college. I went through treatment and stuff and finished up. And then I moved actually to Hawaii and started teaching. And I was like, great, that chapter's closed. New life, great, still wearing wigs, still recovering, all of this stuff, still doing scans every 3 months. But I was like, okay, that chapter's closed. And then I was starting to process it. And I just processed best through writing. And I had blogged during the time CaringBridge was new or didn't exist. I didn't know about it. This was 2008. So I had started writing and I had a number of different people tell me, hey, I really think you need to turn this into something. And the Trinitarian rule, I had 3 people I really respected say that. And I thought, well, I need to. So I just started writing to like process my story. And then people said, no, you need to publish that. So I ended up doing that, which felt weird to write a memoir. And I was so young, but I just really felt this sense that I needed to use my story to encourage others. When I got back to Wheaton for grad school after being in Hawaii for a few years and writing also, one of my professors, Dr. Richard Schultz, had read some of my blog and he was on the translation committee for like Hebrews and Isaiah. And I was like, please don't read my blog. Please just, no, you don't need to do that. But he said, he put language around it and he said, it sounds like you feel a sense of stewardship over your story. And that was kind of a pivotal conversation because I think of stewardship with like your time and your money. But the things that have happened to you, you're like, what does stewardship mean? Like, I did nothing, like this literally just occurred to me. I would have rather not gone through this. But I think that helped me see that. And I was like, yes, that's what I've been feeling. And so I bring that up because that has been a theme that just continues to come where it's like, no, I think maybe the stewardship's not done. So even getting to, so after my master's program, I ended up starting a cancer retreat, which has been on pause. It started on pause during COVID because you can't really gather people with no immune systems. And then some other stuff in life, finishing the demon and then some family stuff has made it kind of hard to balance everything. But my goal is that it's coming back this fall. So... but started a cancer retreat because when I moved, so I'm on the West Coast, Kelly said, I'm in San Diego. And when I moved out here right after Wheaton, my master's program, I got to go to some cancer conferences. So this is like 6 or 7 years after treatment at that point. And I was like, man, they're really good. And everyone talks about like, you got to take care of, like your body, your physical health, your mental health, but like, that. And I was like, just because people need Jesus. Like this, it's the language that people were all talking about, but they didn't have it. And people would talk about how like more people search for God when they have cancer than other times and all this stuff. So I just thought I left a UC Irvine health, school conference that was there. And I sat in the garage and I thought, we're not done with this. We're not done with cancer.
Okay.
There should be something that like gathers believers where we can kind of talk through that and the trauma of it and just bond with other people walking through it. So I started a cancer retreat and then was like, okay, great. Like we're good. So when I started my demon program, it was not at all on my mind that I was going to write about cancer. It's always been like been there, done that. I don't want to be cancer girl forever.
Yeah.
And when Lynn and I were talking at one point, I was talking about doing like something with women in ministry and then something else. I don't even remember the other options. And she was like, well, Hannah, what are the questions you're asking? And I was like, the question I'm asking is, since my retreat had been on pause, what makes it so hard to do cancer ministry well and with longevity? And I just thought of friends of mine who had ministries that have kind of folded or been on pause. Mine, because we lost all the volunteers, I was kind of doing most of the work myself anyway, but it's a lot to do, but I can do hard things. I've done them. So why is there this like, to do it with longevity? And I think the fact of the matter is with cancer ministry, you're dealing with loss, right?
Yeah.
I'm a survivor, praise the Lord. There are more and more survivors every day, right? But like, being confronted with mortality every day, even if people live, you're still confronted with like, we are not immortal. We are not all powerful. There's something about that I think is hard. And then living in a world of grief, like, going in, some of these people I minister to will be lost. And it's just kind of a heavy world. And so I thought like, that's the question I'm trying to answer is like, why aren't we doing this well? And I'm just one person, but churches, mega churches have like support groups that kind of fizzle out and just aren't that great. And if you even look up, like there's so many cancer nonprofits. So I'm sure if you're listening, you're like, all these things, right? Like there's Susan G. Komen and there's, Livestrong and all these things. Very few are faith-based. Okay. And those that are kind of small and like no one's heard of them and, hard to figure out. And I think it's because, well, there's a lot of reasons, but one thing that I wrote in my dissertation was, I think sometimes it's easier to sponsor a child or give money to a well in Africa. And it's like, I helped out of sight, out of mind, and I don't need to be touched by it. But like getting around people who are dying, or even if they're going to live, it's a terminal diagnosis either way, right, is what they call it. And so it's uncomfortable and it's exhausting and it's draining. And so I think we just have some things in the church that we struggle with. So I initially was like, okay, how do we do this well and with longevity? Maybe a handbook. And as I got into the research, I was like, you know what? My master's program was Christian formation and ministry. And for my capstone, I had to create a ministry to address the problem of homelessness in downtown Chicago. So we had to use all the things we had learned. And I spent the weekend and I had to like craft a ministry based on like, here are the needs and why would I make all these choices and all of that. So when I started my cancer retreat, I was like, wait, I actually have created a fake ministry before. Like I have some tools for this. So in getting to my dissertation, when I was thinking, okay, maybe we do a handbook or a manual. And I was thinking like, no, because I had a great handbook and I believe like I sent out great surveys before the retreat, after the retreat. It was impactful. People loved it. There's a reason to do it. And I know that lack of a manual is not why this is not happening.
Okay.
And so I thought like, no pamphlet is going to be like when you're struggling to sustain ministry to those who are dying.
Here you go.
Here's a handout, and I love Steve Garber. He's so great, but there's a book, Visions of Vocation, and he talks about cynicism, and I'm kind of cynical, and I've always been told don't be cynical. And that doesn't help me because I know I shouldn't be cynical. And he gives really compelling reasons. He says like, there's many reasons. He actually says, this is almost a quote, there are many reasons to be cynical if we have not had the incarnation. But because we've had the incarnation and Christ entered into our mess, knowing what he knew about it, and he still chose to enter in, if we're going to follow him, we're compelled to not be cynical. And that is compelling to me, right? Not just saying, Hannah, don't be cynical.
Yeah.
So along those lines, I was thinking like, having a handout or a video series, I don't know that that's going to do it. I think there are other issues. And so I ended up focusing on 4 topics within my dissertation. Really kind of looking at how do we do cancer ministry well and with longevity as ministers. Because my book was my story, and it was written to like encourage those walking through cancer. And I thought, well, I've done that. Not that we're done, but like now from the other side of it, what do we do to love people walking through that? And so the 4 main topics I focused on were mortality, how like in the church, we don't love to talk about that, right? Good Friday is a little thing. Yes.
Yeah.
Easter Sunday's huge.
Who's your target audience? Who are you speaking to?
Yeah, really people who are going to minister to the cancer community, whether that is in formal ministry, whether that is loved ones who are like, how do I love this person well and not run away at the diagnosis?
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's not just pastoral leaders, but it could include them.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. But also people who are in the trenches. Okay.
Totally. People trying to do official ministries. And not even just cancer ministry. It could be grief ministry, anything. But again, truly just, I think loved ones. And also I learned, even in one of my topics was embodiment. And I even learned in that, like how pastors, not dealing with cancer, how pastors from the pulpit talk about embodiment when they say things like, someday our souls will be free and with God.
Yeah.
I know what they're meaning, but there's something so important about people whose bodies are breaking down to know that their bodies too will be healed and whole and resurrected. And so in little ways, when we're talking about embodiment, even totally unrelated to cancer, just from the pulpit, like it matters how we talk about mortality and embodiment. Yeah.
So you don't even know how you're saying this, like really fits in with the idea that theology, which we think of as, up here, really matters at the life level, like on the ground.
Yes.
The way we think and what we believe and the way we communicate it impacts everyday life in so many ways. This is just one. So you said 4. You said mortality. What are the other?
So mortality, embodiment.
Okay.
And then lament. That's the third one. And then community, which some of this just comes kind of organically from things you've written, right? Like, so the goal is during your program, when you write papers, it will all lead to that. Because we transferred in, my papers on women martyrs in the early church didn't relate at all. And so I was thinking like, well, what's a way I can use anything? And we had to write a paper, or I chose community. I'm trying to think. I don't know which class it was. It was maybe Sneller's class. And I was like, well, I've already written on community. And I think that is a huge piece of this, and really clarifying what does it mean to be part of community? Okay. It's not an online group of followers that have shared affinity groups. Like, what does it mean for the church to actually be a community that weeps with those who weep, rejoices with those who rejoice? And so that's kind of how I tied it together. But I really thought, like, if we're going to do this well, or any kind of grief ministry, or really just live lives where we can not run from hard things, I think we need to think theologically in a better way about mortality. We're all going to die. We have to think about that. And embodiment. Embodiment, it seems so specific and random, but it matters. Yeah. And lament, my goodness, like, there's so much there. And then community.
Sure. Okay, so what, you finished the paper, you're all graduated. What's next? Like, is this content, are you looking to put it in a certain form? Is this a book that we should look for one day? Are you?
Great question.
So who's going to benefit from this? How are they going to find it?
Yeah.
Other than this.
You know what? Yeah. So my goal is to do some teaching. So that was a thought. But I will say this. So if anyone is looking at a program, I graduated last May, and then I got to June and July, and I kept just dragging my feet with applying for things. And I finally realized, like, I'm exhausted.
Yeah.
I'm exhausted, and that's okay. And I had talked to some friends who had done programs, and then Dr. Kohik also about, like, is there kind of a slump after you graduate? And there is. So I wish more people had like said that. But I got this sense come about July. I was like, Lord, why am I dragging my feet? Am I not being obedient or whatever? And I just got the sense that he said, hey, for this season, like maybe it's okay if you just have a full-time job, because I had been doing full-time job, full-time school, and like so many things. And I was like, imagine that. Some people just have a full-time job, like, and they're not also doing a second side hustle, or whatever. Yeah. And so I really saw that.
Yeah.
Yes, in the fall. And so I do want to turn my dissertation into a book, but I
Uh-huh.
needed to put it away and
Okay.
just
Okay, so
kind of
your
say
topic
like,
is hard. Yeah, your
yeah, oh
topic
yeah,
is deep and heavy. So,
yeah,
when I ask you where is this stuff, I don't want to make it sound like a big pressure campaign because
no, no, no,
it's important, it's hard. Just 3 years of thinking about it in those terms, I'm
yeah,
sure, and I know that, you've got other things going on that just remind you of life's, frailty. And
yeah,
so, like, and that, every human's got something going on, right?
yeah,
Different degrees. So, yes, no pressure, but I was
yeah,
wondering more of do you
yeah,
have any idea of how you would like it to take form,
yeah.
and get it to the
Well,
church?
no, and it's a great question, and I don't feel any pressure, but I
Mhm.
do that word stewardship. Like, I do think
Mm,
there's a sense of I've done this work and done this learning, and I don't think that we're done with it, right? So
oh, yeah.
I taught in one of our cohort mates classes last
Yeah,
week, and that kind of revived some things, and it was interesting. I brought story into my dissertation because
yeah,
English literature teacher and major,
yeah.
and I think we're telling the wrong story sometimes about lament and community and all that stuff. So I use
Mhm.
story, and he asked me to speak on story. And so I thought, okay, yes, we're not done with this. Like, there's more. It is a heavy topic. I learned that with writing my story,
Right.
um, that the marketability of it, like they asked the question of, is anyone else doing it? Is there a need? And I was like, no one's really writing about, I mean, there's a lot of books on breast cancer, but like there weren't a lot of books by like young people
Yeah.
with cancer, faith-based. And so I thought no one's doing it. And there is a market, right? 1 out of 2 men, 1 out of 3 women in their lifetime. That's kind of adjusted. So it's more like
Mm.
1 out of
And you were
somewhere
young.
between
Yeah,
that. Yeah, I
yeah.
was 21.
Wow.
Um, so, but so there's a market for it, right?
Mhm.
And no one was doing it except who wants to pick up a book about cancer, right? Like, not that many people. So that's where it's like, well, there's kind of a market for it, but like, it's not most people's, reading that they want to do for fun,
It's a
which is kind
niche.
of
Yeah.
like me post graduation. Like, I'd been reading for so long heavy topics on death, on,
Yeah. Mm.
so mortality, on lament. And I was like, I need total fluff reads, rom-coms, fluff reads,
Absolutely.
cleanse.
Cleanse that
So
palate.
yeah, so I think that about my dissertation too.
Mhm.
Like,
Yeah.
I do think it's so needed, but I also think the average person is not going to be like, you know what, in my spare time, I really wanted to pick up a book and like read about mortality and lament, even though it's like
No.
needed for the soul. Yeah,
I don't think it's one of those pick it up because it looks interesting. It's pick it up because I need it. And
yeah,
some people are gonna be there's always gonna be someone in that phase of life where they're searching for hope, searching for help, all
yes,
of that. And so when however it comes out, whether it's you're speaking in person or you're putting curriculum together or you're writing a book or I don't know, put a website, however you decide.
yeah,
Uh, is the topic that very, very few people want to put it together themselves. Like they don't
yes,
want to experience, right?
yeah,
They're really glad when someone else has come along and said, I've done some hard
yes,
work that can benefit all of you.
yeah,
Because
and
you've lived it, you've thought
totally,
through it, and you've really taken time to process it through the grid of scripture and the Christian faith.
yeah. Thank you. The other thing I would say, so if there are people who are like watching and thinking, well, what do I do? What am I doing next? And what do I do with my stuff? It's also interesting because you have to be pretty specific in your topic, right? And so I
Mhm.
thought, well, this is on cancer, but I think there is a wider application. And so I do see that like there's a world for that. So Kelly alluded to like there's other stuff I mentioned in my family. So we are dealing with aging and dementia, and
Mhm.
it's been really brutal. But there are so many things. And actually, like, as I was writing my dissertation, especially the lament chapter, it's like tears are streaming down my face
Yeah.
as I'm writing this because I'm learning this. So I also know like there's this germ of an idea that I think what I wrote about is applicable beyond cancer. But you do kind of have to like really narrow in and make an argument and do that. So I would also encourage people like that your work and your research might be like really specific and kind of niche, but I think there's going to be future opportunities that are broader than that. So I don't really know what that will look like, but
Mhm.
as I'm in this, I mean, I have a list of names actually in front of me of other people who are walking through this that I pray for. And I
Mhm.
think like yeah, it's that you also need community, and you're dealing with mortality and lament, so
Yeah.
yeah.
It doesn't
So
have to be
you don't
cancer. Yeah.
know, right? You don't know the
Mhm.
ways God is going to use it because it's stewardship, right? It's like you just say,
Right.
okay, I did this thing. I don't know. If two people read it, it's worth it. Yeah.
And the Lord will put it in front of the people who need it. He
Yeah.
will, you know, reward your faithfulness. And honestly, I'm ready. Actually, I have it on my hard drive. I have to go back and remember that I have all of our cohorts
Oh, yeah.
dissertations to read. So that's a fun project I think I will do this summer because they're all
Yes.
kind of long. I'll have to
Yeah.
maybe take one a week or something like that,
Yeah.
right?
Yes.
So okay, so for now you're working, you're helping with your family, and that's enough for now, right?
Yeah.
I feel like it's a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. And there's been a little bit of limbo too of kind of wondering like, when are the next benchmarks and what do we, so it's things
Mhm.
have felt a little bit in limbo, but I have felt the Lord like be present in that, and that's
Mhm.
okay. And this isn't really a season for resolution, which is probably what writing on lament taught me a lot about, having these
Mhm.
unfinished questions that we hold in our hands. So
Yeah.
there's been a little bit of like holding things open because I want to be able to be present with my family when possible. They live
Yeah.
in Hawaii, so not close, but
Yeah.
I'm as close as one can get. So yeah, so that's kind of interesting too. But yeah, yeah,
Okay.
we'll see what the plan is. Yes.
That's right. There's plenty of time. So it was
Yeah.
amazing. It was just a great experience sharing our program, both of them with you and
Yes.
Susie
Yes.
specifically, but our whole cohort. And I remember listening to your final oral summative, as we call it, your presentation, and crying my way through it. You and Megan, uh, both just, I think, real courageous, taking on
Mm.
hard topics and trying to provide something that would serve the church, for folks who, all of us will go through something that will need it.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
all right, I'm
Thank you.
gonna, yes, thank you. I'm going to, if you will, send me a link to your book, the one that you already have, so we can at
Okay.
least put that in the notes and let folks know a little bit more about you. And they'll know
Perfect.
to be looking for you one of these days.
Perfect. No, okay, I don't want to be too self-deprecating here. The cover, there's so many things we redo, right? I was 23, 24. Anyway, the
Whatever.
cover. But I stand by the title, which is long, and
Oh,
everyone was like, too many words. You need a
tell
couple
us.
words. The title is What in the World Are You Doing with Cancer? And
Okay.
I do write about this in my book, but there was a moment like I'd already done at least one chemo treatment. I think I was home over Christmas break. So like maybe I'd done two. So it's not new.
Mhm.
We've been doing this. And my dad came home from work and looked over at me and my sisters. I think we were like watching TV, and he said, Hannah, I was sitting at work today and I thought, what in the world are you doing with cancer? And we all were kind of like, pause the TV. Like, are we talking like theodicy? Do we need like a theological answer? What's happening? But it was just that moment of like, yes, how have we found ourselves in this
In this.
situation? Which is what people talk about. Like that happens to other people. So
Mhm.
I stand by that because it became like this phrase that
Yeah.
we were like, yeah, what in the world? Turns out, as I've learned since then, my dad says what in the world about everything. Like he'll be like, what in the world is that car doing? So, but in that moment, it just felt
Yeah.
like that encapsulates it. So I
Yeah.
know they're like, don't have long titles, but yeah,
Well,
what in the
speaking of
world?
long titles, your dissertation title has to be long. It's like a rule. I don't. Mine is
Oh,
crazy
yes.
long. I don't even remember. I have
Yeah.
to read it to remember
I don't
it.
remember
So
mine either. I know.
don't worry about it. You'll find it and you'll send that to me as well. So when
Yes.
we post this, we will have people can look right below the video and read it. Okay.
Perfect. Yes.
All
Well,
right.
Kelly, you're wonderful. And truly, thank you for having me on, but also thank you for walking by my chair and being like, so did you apply? And even when I was like, well, I talked to Lynn, I'm probably just going to stay. And you were like, Hannah.
Mm-mm,
So
mm-mm.
thank you. And I know we're wrapping up. I have family in Houston, not
Yeah.
knowing what I was walking through with my immediate family, what was ahead of me. being able to stay with them before our intensives and see family that like extended family that love me and know my immediate family, like was the biggest gift. And I just think about all the ways, like I never would have just gone to HCU, though I had cousins who'd gone there. But the way God brought me there, and you were a huge part of that. So thank you. That like ministered to me, the program, being in Houston, all the things.
Yeah, I did it totally on purpose. I knew all that ahead of time.
Thank you.
Right.
You felt the Spirit say,
there it is.
Not by her chair. Yes.
Yes. Well, I didn't want to leave you behind. So
oh, bless you. Thank you.
Well, this has been great. Thank you. We will, of course, put all that information in the notes. And one of these days, your dissertation will actually be published as a dissertation. Like everybody will get theirs on this thing called ProQuest. So maybe I will be able to add that to the notes one day. So future you can come back and read it and find it. So
perfect.
All right, Hannah. Thanks again. I'll see you soon.
Okay.